So welcome everyone to the webinar Resisting Touristification Across Europe. My name is George, and I will be your host this evening on behalf of the European Action Coalition for Right to Housing and to the City. If couchsurfing was still a thing 15 years ago, it didn't last long until big capital appropriated the idea, which would ultimately change who inhabits city. Sharing economy, as it was called, meant that Airbnb could make a profit from a new type of commodification, one's home. Like wildfire, the idea of using apartments as tourist accommodation instead of hotels and hostels spread throughout the world. Thus, a new type of accumulation of housing units occurred. Owning multiple apartments and renting them out to tourists makes more money than renting them to long-term tenants. This is where we are now. A new speculatory economy of real estate. This is it. Today, we will hear how people are organizing against this process, a process which denies the right to housing. So we have several speakers to talk about how they tackle the process at local level. We have Ana Gago from Habitação. She will tell us about the inspiring project they have in Lisbon, hopefully some good news. Marie Pueyo from Sindicat de Llogateras. She'll describe the explosion of demonstrations in the last year in numerous cities across Spain. And Jana will describe how they work against short-term leases in Galway. There's a very straightforward structure. There will be 3 presentations of 10 to 12 minutes, and then we will have a discussion. I would like to invite first Ana.
Hi, everyone. Can I share some slides for it to be more interesting than just my face?
Sure, please check now if it's available.
Wait.
All right, perfect.
Right. Okay, sorry. So hi, and thank you for listening. I am going to talk about the aims, the tactics, and the achievements of the referendum for housing movement, which in Portuguese is Movimento Referendo pela Habitação, or for short, MRH, which is a popular movement for the detouristification of homes and of neighborhoods in Lisbon. The MRH is a movement with the main goal, which is to set forward and win a referendum in the city so that homes stop being used as holiday rentals or tourist lets or Airbnb in general. First, I will talk very briefly about the problem, so just you have an idea of what's going on in Lisbon and of the problem this holiday rental growth caused in Lisbon. Since 2010 or 2012, around that time, many laws changed in Portugal, many laws that liberalized completely the housing market. So it became much easier for landlords to evict with no cause, and also laws to attract global foreign investment in real estate and tourism. And so this is a GIF that shows the growth of this holiday rental boom that happened since 2010. Nowadays, circa 8% of the housing stock in Lisbon, 8% of all the homes in Lisbon are tourist lets. And they are tourist lets not as home sharing, as this sharing economy of Airbnb. They are tourist lets promoted by investors and property owners who do not live in these homes. Some neighborhoods in Lisbon have like 10, 20, 30, 40, even 70% of the housing stock allocated as tourist lets. This made rents soar. In the city, also homeless people numbers have risen a lot. And basically now we have a huge housing crisis. So people cannot access housing, cannot afford it, or even access it, because in some neighborhoods, as these ones here, central ones, there are no more homes to rent as permanent renting. It is now, the homes are allocated to this short-term renting. And so it is about the housing dimension, yes. And this is a quote of a former neighbor of mine. Both of us have been expelled from this neighborhood where we lived, and she described the situation that is going on very poignantly, I think. She says, "We were invaded, and property owners just want money. They do not care about human rights. If they feel like evicting an 80-year-old lady, they will do it. Someday we will walk around here and say, look, this sort of hotel used to be my home. This is going to be our history." And in fact, this is our current history. Many people were displaced, and we cannot find affordable, decent homes as alternative to live. But it is not just about the housing dimension. Touristification also affects very drastically the neighborhood dimension. Neighborhoods are completely transformed into tourist places, like playgrounds for tourists. And it affects the neighborhood dimension in many aspects, but I will not talk about them all. I will point to one that this other neighbor speaks about, and she says, "I don't think we even speak Portuguese around here anymore. My neighbors moved out. Tourists have occupied the place. We used to be there for each other. We used to shout from the window whenever we had a problem. Now the tourists, they simply don't care." What she's saying here, in other words, is that communities have been completely eroded. So neighborhood relationships of mutual aid, of help to each other, are now eroded because there are not so many people who are permanent in these places. They are living there in a permanent basis, and the permanency makes allows for or builds a care about place and about the people that live in this place. Tourists, they don't care because they are transient consumers. Transient consumers do not care about the place. They are there to consume place. And so this is, for me, a very important aspect. It's that we are not caring about, or this phenomenon is making us have less care for each other and for place, because we cannot stay in as permanent. We are always being displaced and moving around and around, so we cannot build community ties as we did before. And ever since this phenomenon spread of tourism, we have been trying to resist it. I have here many examples of campaigns or other things we put forward. When I mean we, I don't say me specifically, but I mean the social movement that is trying to resist, and people who are trying to resist this situation. This here, for instance, was a campaign, Earthquake Tourism was a campaign put forward by the Left Hand Rotation Collective in 2016, I think, which was about these posters that they hanged up in many walls of the city with emergency instructions in case of urban transformation produced by mass tourism, or terramotourism, which is a wordplay with the huge earthquake that went on in Lisbon in 1765 that devastated the whole city. And this is a comparison with that talks about the devastation tourism is provoking to the city. And some of the the instructions, like we have been trying them, like get together and maintain the social fabric of the neighborhood, resist collectively in the neighborhood where you live. And we are trying this. And there were other campaigns against Airbnb, like this, your holidays, our eviction, stop Airbnb. There were huge demonstrations, not only in Lisbon, but all over Portugal, because this is a problem in the whole country about the right to housing and the right to the city. This image here was a huge demonstration with tens of thousands of people in Lisbon that rallied for their right to housing. And it was a demo that was in the context of the Housing Action Days that the European Action Coalition promotes, that many groups do this in their cities, because this is not only a local phenomenon of Lisbon, but then in many other places, as we will listen to today for sure. But we did all this and many people complained, and the problem is very obvious in Lisbon or Portugal. But despite that fact, governments, both national and local, have not done anything to address the issue, and they continue to attract and put forward laws to attract more investment in tourism, more short-term rentals, more displacement, basically. And so in 2022, what we as social movements figured out was that we would go and try another tool to try to ensure our right to housing. And this was the referendum. So we found out that we could put forward a referendum by popular initiative, that this is the name that is written in the law, referendum by popular initiative. That is written in the law in Portugal, but that no group until now has tried to put forward a referendum by popular initiative. So there is no history. We are doing history, actually. We know that in many other places, groups, citizen groups have tried this and have put forward referendums by popular initiative, but in Portugal, there hasn't been one until now. We hope it will go forward. Actually, we were very inspired by the DVE movement, which is a referendum movement too, in Berlin, for the socialization of housing owned by huge enterprises. And we were very inspired by them, and we talked and we learned from how we could build a movement, grow the movement around this tool of the referendum. And what we are doing with the referendum is that we have a legal temporality or a legal frame that we need to follow. The first thing we had to do was to decide which questions we should take to the ballots. So we spent many months discussing which questions and designing the questions. This process was not a process like in an office or a bureaucratic process. It was a very open process with huge assemblies, very participated, of people discussing on which topic and how we should write them down so that we could win this, and that this would have an effect on our lives and our right to housing. So we chose to have two questions. The first one, I translated it a bit literally, and it's written how the legal frame demands it to be. It says, do you agree with amending the municipal regulation on holiday rentals so that the Lisbon City Council, within 180 days, orders the cancellation of holiday rentals registered in residential housing units? And basically, this question asks for the elimination of the tourist lets that are already in place in Lisbon. It's about what is already here, and we want a yes here. The second question is about the future. Is that so there can no longer be allowed to do tourist lets in homes, to convert homes into tourist lets? And it says, do you agree with amending the municipal regulation on holiday rentals so that holiday rentals are no longer allowed to take place in residential housing units? And here we want a yes too. And so after this phase, that was very participative, very incredible to build movement and to gather people. So now we are a very big group. We had to collect signatures. And we spent the last year and a half collecting signatures. We did this in a slow pace because two reasons. One is a legal one, that we needed to collect them in paper. We could not do an online ask, but we used this as an opportunity to talk to people. So each signature was a conversation. Each signature was an opportunity to say, do you want to join us? Do you want to build this movement with us? And with this, we grew bigger and bigger. We have lots of people that didn't know each other before and that are willing to build this movement for the referendum. And now I'm going to do an announcement, which we are very happy. We already have the signatures and we built this whole movement, and we are going to deliver these signatures next week to the Municipal Assembly. The Municipal Assembly is a body of the City Council, and this body has to approve the referendum, that the referendum goes forward. We are going to deliver them on the 8th of November, next Friday, exactly at this time. And we hope they will approve this referendum because now we have a political configuration in Lisbon which is favorable to us. The Municipal Assembly is mostly constituted by left-wing groups which are also preoccupied with this phenomenon, and we hope they will approve it. We prove that this goes forward. And if it does, we hope that there are other legal steps, like the Constitutional Court has to approve the questions, but we have studied a lot so that the questions will be approved. And then if this goes as we think it will, according to plan, the referendum will take place in the spring. This spring, we cannot say the month exactly, but in the spring we hope to have it. And if the yes wins, this means the part of the decommodification of housing in Lisbon, meaning the touristification of housing in Lisbon. And so the lowering of rents all over maybe the metropolitan area, and a new hope for neighborhood life in our neighborhoods, because then we could have more neighbors to occupy these places that are being occupied by these transient consumers, and build community again, and build another way of being together. And
we should wrap it up if you want to.
I'm finishing.
Yeah?
Yes,
Great.
it's the last one.
Yeah.
So I would like to finish with just a call for solidarity, for international solidarity, because we know we are facing huge powers too. We know the Airbnb lobby will not want this to happen in Lisbon, and we know they are very powerful, even in the EU, in many countries. And so we ask to spread the word, to reject this model, of course, but to spread the word that this referendum is arriving and what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think I speak for everyone. Best of luck, fingers crossed. This would be a major win and a very powerful signal for everyone else. So thank you very much. Maybe we have some time in the discussion slot to expand on this. Next, Marie from Sindicat de Llogateras.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hi. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Marie.
I'll try to be quick and summarize, because there's a lot to say about the touristification protest that has happened in Spain, all over Spain, during this summer, and they are still, the wave is still ongoing, but I will get there. we know that all of us in here, that tourism is a global phenomenon. As Anna was saying, it's happening everywhere, but it's worse in sunny regions because of the kind of tourist we get and the intensity of the tourism. Sunny regions all over Europe and all over the world get more stress in the touristification process. And in Spain, this is something that started in the 90s, but especially the last 15 years, like you were saying in the beginning when you were telling a bit about touristification, how the entrance of Airbnb especially, and I think that also cheaper flights and other reasons that people, the world has become smaller, so we will want to be everywhere. And Spain is one of those places where people want to come. It's a big destination, but all over the world, not only for people from Europe. We have here people from everywhere. And all major cities in Spain are touristic destination, but especially all coastal cities and towns and small places, big places in the coast get a lot of tourists, especially during summer. And we have a different kind of tourists. We have cultural tourists that come here to see the sites and see the museums, but we have one kind of especially damaging tourist, that is the party tourist. Spain is one of those places where party tourism is encouraged, and it's a very a destination, a very liked destination for the people that want to party and want to go wild. Because the problem is not the party, the problem is the kind of party they want. So all of this has consequences for the people. We have more precarious jobs, because right now in Spain, the biggest industry is tourism. So most jobs for most people are related to tourism in one way or another, but they are precarious jobs. Jobs in cleaning, in hotels, in Airbnbs, even in restoration, in bars, restaurants. All of these jobs are precarious jobs that are not very well paid, but also most of them are temporary, because there's more demand in the summer. Maybe you don't have work in winter. We also have more precarious housing because of this, as the reasons Anna has already pointed to them, with all these touristic apartments taking from the market a lot of residential housing, but also increasing the prices for the rest of the habitational housing. Young people can leave their houses maybe until they are 30, if they are lucky. People of middle age that have to share houses with other people of middle age, when normally at a certain age you want to live alone, and old people that is expelled from their houses. All of this because of this loss of housing. Airbnb and hotels displace the neighbors from the neighborhoods. There are laws that protect this kind of tourism in everywhere. Just to mention one very crazy law, in the Canary Island, there is in a certain neighborhood near the sea, they built a very nice neighborhood of houses. And these houses were built with a clause that if you buy the house to live there, during the summer, you have to leave your house, give it to a tourist business so they can rent the houses. It's not even you renting them. It's another person renting your house, because it was built in a tourist area that, of course, in winter, no one wants to go there. But in summer, you have to leave your house. And people that does not do it, they receive a fine. It's very crazy. And also there's ecology concerns, buildings made by the sea, places that are protected in the nature being demolished to build more houses, water that it's sent to swimming pools, to golf courses, contamination with planes, with cruises, with cars. We've had a very bad drought this last year in Spain, all over. And as I said, swimming pools and golf courses have had all the water they wanted, while people had to restrict the water they used at home. And of course, disrespect from certain tourists, especially, as I said, these party tourists in Balearic Island and coastal towns. And a bit like Anna was implying, there's this lack of social awareness in most of those tourists. They come here to consume, they come here to party, and most of them are working class people, that they are struggling at their home, but they don't have a conscience of saying, where am I going? What is happening in the place that I'm visiting? And they don't care if they vomit or pee at your door. They don't care if they make loud noises during the night. They don't care if they destroy your parks, your plazas, because they are partying. And of course, the loss of identity of our cities and our neighborhoods in favor of touristic business, touristic restaurants, touristic bars that step by step convert all cities, not only in Spain, but all over Europe, in the same city. Because right now, the major cities all over the world have the same boutiques, the same kind of restaurants, the same kind of flavors. Everything is the same. So it's very traveling losses kind of the meaning for people that don't like to travel for partying and things like this. As I said, the factors are cheaper flights, the Airbnb that make it easier and kind of cheaper to, if you want to travel by group or travel by family, and that's something that sometimes we forget. There are families with small children that now, thanks to this kind of lodging, have it easier to travel, because with kids, it's a different kind of accommodation and everything. So we have to have this in mind also when we talk about this, because it's an argument that they can use. And also, when I think that one of the reasons that, at least in Spain, we have this kind of tourism is the FOMO, the fear of missing out, social media. Everybody wants to have the same picture in that same beach, in that same location, that this person that is very famous in the internet, that this singer make here their video clip. And this is making that some places get crowded, but for people just to take a picture. They are not even interested in the place, in the history, in the gastronomy. They are interested in that spot to take a picture. And we've seen this in places, like I said, Balearic Island. And even museums are being turned into these places where people take certain pictures. And we are losing the museums of always, like you could go see pictures, or you could go see art or photography, for these kind of experience museums. The Fan Museum, the Illusion Museum, where you can go and take pictures of very funny pictures, yes, but that's not a museum. That's not culture. That doesn't give you anything in return. So yes, and in top of that, we are robbed of our spaces. The spaces, like I said, the best beaches, the most beautiful glades and parks, the historical landmarks, the nicest plazas, yes, all of that, everyone wants to be there, but it's not spaces. Those are memories. This is collective memory that we are losing. This is collective space, even individual memories. Places where I used to go when I was a little kid, I can't go anymore. And if I go, they are not the same place because they are filled with tourists. And we are losing, like Anna said, our nets, the connections with the neighbors, the things that make a city a place to live, not a place just to thrive, to survive. So everything that makes a city a nice place to live gets lost in favor of this benefit. And we even have to listen these people that is having these big benefits say things like, but you can move to a cheaper place. And this is, I think this is a form of violence, telling someone that it's living in a place where they have lived all their life, they have studied there, their friends, families there, that they can move to a cheaper place, as if places were just that, places, is violence, because a place is not only a place. A place, it's our memory, it's our collective. I try to be quicker. So this all created an atmosphere of discomfort and discontent that is getting bigger and bigger, and this summer it exploded. It started in the Canary Islands with a very big demonstration against tourism, but soon it was followed by Mallorca, by Malaga, Sevilla, Ibiza, Barcelona, the Balearic Island in general made a lot of protests. The coastal areas, but even in the north, in Bilbao, in Madrid, there was a huge movement. And not only it, and it's not against the tourist. This is something that we have tell a lot, that you hate the tourist. We don't hate the tourist. We all are tourists. We all like traveling around. We all like seeing new places. It's very inspirational. It's very calming to walk through a city you don't know. But as I said, this kind of touristification that has no social conscience behind them, it's very damaging. And also, we can't leave this kind of touristification to expel them from our houses, to make us poorer, to make us lost connection, identity, and people is saying no more. We are reaching a point of boiling, and we don't want it anymore. Also, a part of very big demonstrations that were very, very big, we also had specific actions that some were funnier than others, but in Barcelona, some tourists were squirted with water pistols. In Mallorca, some very beautiful beaches were occupied by the locals, so the tourists couldn't get to the sea. They also blocked trails in the mountain where they knew people were with the squads to make noise and contamination. And the thing is that most of these protests that were pacific protests were repressed by the police. People was identified. If there were a lot of people, they were even beaten by the police in certain places. So it's a message from our the people that govern in our cities, that who are they with? They are with the tourists, not with the people.
Maria,
yes. I have to wrap
1,
up.
2 minutes, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, for a closing statement.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will say just very quick 2 things. One is that with all these tourist protests that we have some voices from the touristic industry that very surprisingly started to say that maybe we were right. Maybe all these Airbnb places should be closed down. But this is very dangerous, because we all know that these people, what they want is to turn to get rid of Airbnb so they can have more hotels. They don't want more houses, they want more hotels. And also they talk about quality tourism, and this means rich tourists. They want to go back to that time where only rich people traveled. They want to go back to this elite thing, but rich people, a 5-star tourist spends 5 more times water and contaminates 5 more times than a 2-star tourist. So the problem is not that rich people is better quality. The problem is the kind of tourists we are having, and the model of cities that they are making us live in. And just to finish all of this, the court, I think, snapped this past September, because some unions were pushing for a reform of the law of temporary housing, and it was voted no in the parliament. And this prompted a series of new rage in the cities, especially in Madrid, that in the 13th of October, they made a very big demonstration for housing, the biggest demonstration of housing that has ever happened in Spain. And they were like around 150,000 people. It's very, very big. And now in Barcelona, we want to replicate, to keep this alive. And on the 23 of November, we are hoping to have at least as big as Madrid, a demonstration in our city, because we think housing is very closely related to touristification. And well, we're not going to stop until all of us have affordable, dignified, and safe housing. So we hope it's very big also.
Thank you very much, Maria. Really inspiring and very interesting analysis. Maybe we're gonna go back to some of the things you pointed out in the discussion. And now we invite Jana from Community Action Tenants Union from Ireland.
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks to the EAC as well for creating this platform where we can discuss this pressing issue that is all around us at the moment. So yeah, I'm here to share a bit about the situation in Ireland, but specifically in Galway, where the effects of short-term rentals, particularly Airbnb, are very much felt in our communities. So I'm an organizer for CATU, the Community Action Tenants Union. I'm based in Galway. It's a members-led organisation that fights for tenants' rights and housing as a human right, basically. I mean, I think it's a very different scale to what we've heard so far, because Ireland isn't Spain or Portugal. The weather will tell you that much. But Ireland is currently in the worst housing crisis of the history of the island. So a thing like Airbnbs and touristification is very hardly felt as well. I just want to set the scene a bit for Galway specifically. So it's a very small city on the west coast of Ireland, with a population of around 80,000, but it has around 3 million visitors a year. So it's like a very popular holiday destinations, especially for Americans. Just to give you an idea a bit, like I just looked it up for this month specifically. At the moment, you can find on Airbnb, you can find 636 full houses for rent on Airbnb, and that's compared to only 34 long-term rentals on daft.ie, which is the Irish housing website. So that just shows you like the discrepancy of like how many more Airbnbs there are than short-term lets, and how that is also creating like massive issues with rents going up. So there's also an issue with the lack of enforcement around planning permission, because Galway is in a rent pressure zone, which means that landlords can't just go put up rents however they want. They still try to, of course, but that's where the tenants union comes in. But also since 2019, property owners who wish to rent out an entire home on Airbnb or as a holiday let, they have to require planning permission with the local authority. So that's just like a legislation that was put in to maybe hopefully put a cap on stuff like that, but only 25 of the 636 entire homes have planning permission. So the bulk of Airbnbs in Galway City are illegal. And despite this, the Galway City Council has only investigated one case of illegal short-term letting since 2023. So that's just disproportionate. That's insane. So many property owners just evade regulations. They know they can pull it off because it's not being enforced at all. And obviously it's maximizing their profits. They can earn way more with renting out Airbnbs than with long-term rents. So this means that families and individuals are being pushed out to make way for tourists. It's disrupting the fabric of our community. We've heard it from the other two speakers as well. That's very similar in Galway at the moment. Just apart from the city centre of Galway as well, I want to highlight the issue of the Gaeltacht areas, specifically in the Connemara. So Gaeltacht are areas in Ireland where the Irish Gaelic language is spoken as first language. It's already a language that's really threatened because English is being taken over, obviously. So in Connemara has a few Gaeltacht areas. All those areas combined, we see that there's 221 houses listed on Airbnb compared to only 4 on daft.ie. So this threatens, not just homes, but entire communities and the Irish language as well. Airbnb transforms the landscapes and it becomes increasingly difficult for Irish speakers and locals to find housing. To give another perspective, like there's only 6 Gaeltacht areas left on the island, so not many at all. And the total number of Airbnbs in these areas are 989 compared to only 7 long-term rentals that you can find online. So that's again like insane. But so that's just the background of the situation in Galway here. I also just want to link this into like housing injustices across borders, because they're not confined to one place. They resonates everywhere, and solidarity is key. And specifically on Airbnb, I want to say that CATU has 2 years ago now has passed a motion to support BDS, so boycott, divestment, sanction movements against Israeli companies and companies that operate in illegal settlements in Palestine. Airbnb is one of those companies, so that's an extra reason as well to start boycotting Airbnb, and that's certainly something that resonates with Irish people here. So we can like also use that movement. We can really make links there as well. So we can stand in solidarity with those affected by these injustices everywhere. It extends beyond Galway. I do want to put a bit of a personal face to this issue as well, because as a tenants union, obviously we're organised renters, and we have loads of members that come with issues. And at the moment in Galway, there's a member defence case. One of our members is being evicted from her apartment where she has been living for 5 years to make place for an Airbnb. I mean, the landlord is not saying it specifically, but it's very likely. So the lease, the contract of her apartment was taken over by the son of the original landlords. And since then, she has gotten an eviction notice. The son already operates 3 illegal Airbnbs in the city centre that we know of, all very recent. So it's very likely that he wants to turn her apartment into an Airbnb as well. Because obviously he can see that he can make more money by renting out Airbnb, and the lack of restrictions and enforcement from the existing legislation from local council is not stopping him. Of course, nothing is stopping him, except for us. As a tenants union, we treat this as a regular member defence case. So our way of dealing with this is by putting pressure on the landlords to give in to our demands, being keep our member in our home. And we use different tactics for this, and we always think of escalating actions. So we started with just sending a letter of demands. When there was no answer to that, we went around door knocking in the neighborhoods with a petition to get community support as well. Obviously, everyone supports our demands to keep her in her home and to stop more Airbnbs in the city centre. Then we went on to do a phone picket, which basically means that for a day long, we invite all our members across the island. So we have over 2,500 members in Ireland to make a phone call to the landlords to put pressure on him to come to the negotiation table. We've also released a press release to put more public pressure. So this is still an ongoing action, but I just want to showcase how this is a very personal story for so many of our members. What we are saying to our members as well is just to overhold, which means just to stay in their house, stop the evictions from happening, just clog up the system that way by just staying put. But yeah, so this member defense case, this local member defense case feeds into a wider campaign that the Galway branch of CATU is planning on launching. So that would be a Home is Not Holiday Let's campaign, which is similar to a campaign that is currently run in Edinburgh by Living Rent. So we're certainly looking at our neighbours there on how they are planning this campaign, and the demands they have are also similar. For us, it's also enforcement from the city council, county council, and more restrictions. So that's how we start, but we do want to look broader as well. And I also want to point out, for maybe future European actions, that Dublin houses the headquarters of Airbnb, so that could be an interesting strategic target as well for coordinated action. Just putting that in there. We're certainly interested in working together with more groups on this, because obviously it's felt everywhere. So yeah, let's just remember that this fight against touristification is a collective struggle, and housing is a human right, and through community solidarity and shared action, we can reclaim our neighborhoods. That's it for me anyway. So looking forward to expand a bit more, or think together a bit more of actions we can take in the future. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Jana. Already a couple of things that pop up, the idea of using the law, or when the law is not usable, as in the requirement for permits, and how the municipality just overlooks that. And also the cultural pressures that were also raised by Anna and Maria. I just wanted to draw attention to that, and how local languages are threatened in communities at large, and the idea of organizing a common action against Airbnb in Dublin. That's something that we need to discuss more, I think, internally. Thank you very much. We can open the floor for this for questions from the public. Please, raise your hand if you want to ask a question. So we have one question in the chat. Emanuela, would you like to voice your? Okay, not possible. I can read the question, and then Stella and Maria. So Emanuela says, do you, all speakers, have any experiences of attempting dialogue processes between local authorities and landlords in the roles of people responsible of the harm caused by touristification? So dialogue process between local authorities and landlords, and tenants and local communities, as in the latter, in the roles of people harmed by touristification. I'm wondering if and how restorative justice practices, such as mediation or circles, can be used in such large-scale issues. So briefly, dialogue and mediation practices, if I got it right, between the parties involved. So this would be one question. Should we, yeah, maybe we can start with that. If you have any responses to this. Maria, you have your hand up, but maybe you want to add something else, or would you like to answer this?
Well, I have a question for Anna later, but I can answer to this. At least in Barcelona, in Catalonia, that it's our area of working in the Sindicat de Llogateras. We have, I don't know if to call it a dialogue, it's too positive for what it has been, but yes, we have attempted. Aside from our union action in the streets, we also have a group for how do we call it? Sorry, institutional action and institutional contact with authorities. And in fact, this is how we've managed to get some laws passed, in some more useful than others. But the current Airbnb law that will be, it's more or less in place now, but it won't be effective until the 2028. So it's, as I say, some of them are more useful than others, but it's a compromise that was reached because the tenants union and other housing movements, we've been knocking on the door of the authorities asking for a solution. But normally their solutions are like long-term, and in a way that they have a lot of holes for the people in the landlords and the investors to hold on to. So we have to, every time they pass a law, we have to be vigilant. We have to be the ones making sure they make what they promised. So it's something that we try, because we have to try everything. But we are aware that this is not the thing that talking to them is not the thing that it's going to change the way things are managed.
Thank you, Maria. Jana and Nana, would you like to answer this?
Sure. CATU hasn't specifically been able to bring those groups together. Like, we've held public meetings, but not all those parties are present at those public meetings. There is, like, in the Gaeltacht area, there's another housing group called Banu that is campaigning on better planning legislation for locals and so on as well. And they also hold meetings, public meetings, where the dialogue is a bit more had with landlords as well as councillors. But the thing is, I think in Ireland, it's still not seen as a bad thing at all. Like, having an Airbnb, it's just like, oh, sure, I just have a second house, and like, yeah, people don't really think about it at all as it being bad. So I think our first step as CATU is really like doing a bit more of a awareness raising campaign around the issues of having Airbnb, because like it's not your granny who's renting out her free bedroom that is the issue, you know. It's the landlords, but the big companies that rent out loads and loads of Airbnbs. It's not like the single ones, you know. They're not the main target anyway for us. So I think before we can even do some sort of roundtable discussion with all parties, there needs to be more awareness created in Ireland around the dangers of Airbnb in general, and short-term lets. So yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Anna, would you like to answer?
Well, I think it's similar, and maybe I would like to add that yes, we've tried here in many ways, like sending reports on the problem and the solutions, going to public meetings to talk to these authorities and tell them that they need to do something. even meetings with the government, with some ministries of housing. We've done that, and they just use it for to publicize themselves, like, ah, yes, we are gathering, we are listening to you, we are meeting you, like to publicize themselves, but then they do nothing. And this is why we had these huge demonstrations, and this is why we're putting forward the referendum too, because we've exhausted all the possibilities of talking and asking them. Now we are in another phase that we really need it. So we need to enforce also the solutions and the way to get them, because they don't listen. They are more willing to, they are always listening to the investors and to landlords too, no? These interests of real estate, because these interests that I was saying later, they put lots of pressure, like lobbying, even if this lobby is not recognized. They do this because they have time. They have paid people to go and lobby all the time, and they are a part of the same circles, so they hear them much more than the people that are being affected. Affected people are people who are very, it's huge, the problem, but I mean, if you think, it's people that have precarious works, that have precarious lives, that have less time to go there and have meetings with them and dress nicely and pretend that this is just a chat over lunch. We don't have that opportunity to approach them that way. We don't have lives to do that. So we have to find others. You are not talking, George. You are muted.
Yeah, I was not muted first. So thank you, Anna. And now we have on the list Stella, Antonia, and Manuel. Stella.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, first of all, thank you, the three of you, for the very interesting presentations. Yeah, my first question goes to Marie, and I wanted to know if you can say something more about who is organizing these demonstrations recently in Madrid, in Barcelona. If there is, I guess there is collectives, activists, but is there a network gathering the different organizations? Are the unions part of this network? Yeah, how this is going on? And also a question for Anna. You mentioned that international solidarity could be very useful for next week when we are going to submit this the referendum. So yeah, I thought maybe you could give some more precise way of what different collectives that would like to support, or also EAC, the European Action Coalition, could support you next week. Thanks.
Okay, I start with this demonstration. The demonstration in Madrid, it was a demonstration that was already going to happen. It was started to being prepared during the summer, and in fact it was more a demonstration, a general demonstration for social movements. There were labor unions, there were the housing unions, tenants unions, there were neighborhood associations. It was very general, but as I said, when this happened in September, that the law was not passed, and the reaction from the housing minister in Spain was to ask, please, the landlords to not raise the prices much, to be good. People got very angry, and el Sindicato de Inquilinas in Madrid decided that this was going to be a housing demonstration. And they started, they did a very good job, because it was a month's work, but they started talking to all neighborhood association, people from the neighborhoods. They started making assemblies in blocks, just to mobilize the maximum number of people. And they were the ones like putting all the effort, but they were not the ones in the front, so to speak. They wanted the people to to believe this was their demonstration. And I think that's why it was so big, because in the end, they managed to make people believe in what was being asked for to the politicians. This stop of rentism, and they are threatening with a rent strike that it's the first time in very long time, like in a century nearly in Spain, that this conversation is being had about a rent strike. So it's very nice. And in Barcelona, we are trying to do the same. We are the Sindicat is the one that proposed the date to the rest of the housing movement, but we don't want it to be the demonstration of the Sindicat. We want to be the demonstration of all the housing movement and all the movements, social movements in Barcelona and Catalonia. We are talking with labor unions that we are closer to, like CGT. We are talking with a neighbors association, young people's association, neighborhood unions. And we are making small assemblies all around Barcelona and Catalonia, so the work can be done in a smaller. And in fact, this week was the one in my neighborhood, the small assembly, and 100 people showed up for the assembly. So it was very impressive. And we think it's going to work very well. We are very hopeful. But I think that this idea that Madrid had of making the people participate more, not being the unions the ones telling you come to our demonstration, but make this demonstration. It's a very powerful message that it's going to work very well.
Thank you, Maria. And Stella had a question for you, Anna, as well.
Yeah. So the question is how to materialize this solidarity I asked for, right? I didn't mean it for next week when I was talking. I meant for until spring, for the whole process. Actually, for this phase, now we asked more for solidarity for many collectives, national collectives, because we think if you want to express solidarity, it's amazing, but we need now to put eyes on this municipal assembly, because now they have the power to put the referendum forward. So we think it's a quite national or local issue. So we don't know if, like, I don't know if it's news that you say, oh, the municipal assembly in Lisbon should put it forward. But if you want to say that, it's great. We appreciate your help. And also, it's not very concrete, but it's about putting the eyes on the lobby, Airbnb lobby, and maybe helping destroy this narrative that Airbnb keeps putting forward, that is, it's home sharing, it's the sharing economy that we all know. It's not the sharing economy. It's people who already have their own home where they live in, and then they have more property which they are using to put it on Airbnb. It's not that you are sharing a room in your home. In Lisbon, there are, like, it's a very, very small percentage of people who do this. It's a business. It's like turning homes into the tourism industry, making part of the tourism industry. So maybe we also need eyes on the Airbnb lobby. I don't have, and just spread the word that this referendum is happening. Maybe that we are trying this. For now, I think it's that.
Thank you, Anna. I would just take the opportunity to add that we've had news reports about the idea of the referendum in Lisbon, in Romania, in July. So it's making waves already. Antonia.
Hey, I will go a bit back to the Emanuela's question about the responsibility of local authorities. It reminded me, this question, of something interesting that you, Anna, mentioned in your presentation in the panel on stopping touristification in the split meeting, when you mentioned the processes of about maybe 15 years or more ago, related to the crisis 2008, and the role that EMF and European Union had in imposing such policies that provoked and in a way invited touristification to Portugal, as a model of as a model of saving Portuguese banks in a crisis of 2008, and opening Portugal for a global market, and this kind of a tourism. And you mentioned as one of the tools for doing this at the international level, the growth of the market of the low-cost airplanes. So I don't know, maybe just a comment, maybe a question for you, if you think it would be interesting or helpful to tell something more in detail about that, and a question to everyone here to, I don't know, to consider if this information maybe would be in a way useful as a kind of I don't know, international well, not campaign, but some kind of awareness of the connections of these processes that brought this kind of touristification to all of the towns we are living in.
If there's someone who wants to take this.
I can explain a bit further, which is that the IMF imposed, in order to save the Portuguese banks, yes, imposed that the airports in Portugal would be used for low-cost airlines. So it was an imposition of the EU that we had this. We didn't have low-cost airlines before, so the EU made us have them, and the liberalization of the rental law, because prior to 2012, we had a rental law that made it difficult. It wasn't impossible, but much more difficult than it is now for landlords to displace tenants and not to renew contracts. And it was the EU and the IMF that obliged the Portuguese government to liberalize the law and make it easier for landlords to evict, in order to attract foreign real estate investment and tourism. They go hand in hand, as if it would to save the economy, no? But it didn't save our lives. We are living much worse conditions now.
Right. Maria or Jana?
Yeah, I think about what, well, to us it was a very similar experience. But about what Antonia was saying about maybe using all of this information and similarities to kind of make some campaign and raise awareness, we can try to work towards that. I would love to find a way. As I said, one of the things that I think it saddens me more is the lack of social awareness of most tourists that in their own areas are facing all of these struggles, but they repeat them when they go to another place. And I would love to find a way for people to realize that. I still have not found it, but if we from the EAC can work towards that and find a way, it would be amazing.
Jana, would you like to add something?
Don't really have to add anything other than, yeah, I would also, I think, would be very interested in seeing a campaign that is more widespread around raising awareness So yeah, it does start with consumer making their choices, boycotting. So I think we should not be afraid for calling out for a boycott for things like Airbnb. And yeah, really trying hitting it home with tourists as well, that this is tearing their own communities apart at home. So yeah, I agree with what he was saying as well of tourists just forgetting about these issues if they go on holidays, because sure, like we've earned our holidays, so we don't have to think about that. But yeah, I think it would be very good to do some sort of widespread awareness around it, and linking all these issues together.
Indeed, we have to talk about that. Next, we have Manuel, Maria, and Sidorella. Manuel.
I'm a resident in Lisbon and also a member of the Movement for a Housing Referendum.
I'm sorry, Manuel, I can't really hear you.
Hold on.
Maybe if you get your microphone closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'm Manuel. I'm a resident in Lisbon and also a member of the Movement for Housing Referendum. And I wanted to pick up on something that both Jane and Anna mentioned, which is the fact that many, if not most, Airbnbs are not run by individual people, but indeed this large, let's call it Airbnb industrial complex. And my question is specifically because these Airbnbs are not managed by individual people, they rely on other companies to do the servicing for them, the cleaning, the kind of management of guests, etc. Have there been any efforts in your organizations to specifically target those companies? So the companies that essentially make this industrial Airbnb complex work and possible?
All right, thank you. Anyone who wants to answer this?
I can say that in the Galway branch, the CATU Galway branch, there has been ideas floating around, but no concrete actions yet, to do specific targeted actions against, or like just trying to emphasize that these companies that do work together or do work for these Airbnbs, that maybe affiliating with them isn't good for their own business. So trying to, trying to get to them that way through like reputational damage, but also direct actions in the idea of like, you know, all the washing is being put out at one day, and like in Galway, it's mad. You can see if you walk through the streets, there's like all around, like on one street everywhere where there's an Airbnb, there's the washing being put out that is then being collected by vans. So yeah, we have been thinking of doing something around that as well, but I can't explain too much here. But yeah, there's certainly ideas floating around to do some sort of direct actions that way. But I'm really interested in hearing more ideas, because yeah, like our tenants union is very much focused on direct action as a way of putting pressure on the forces that can give us what we want. So yeah, if there's other people that have more ideas, let us hear it.
All right, thank you. Anna, and then Maria, and Maria, afterwards, you can also get to your own point that you wanted to do separately. Thank you.
Okay. You know, Manuel, maybe that we haven't done any actions regarding these companies, but yeah, it's important to express that also, that these companies that manage all the cleaning and all the that welcome the tourists, that give them the key sometimes when there's no key lockers. It depends. Each company has its own model too on how to organize this. They are key to make Airbnb in general be part of the financialization of housing, because without them, Airbnb would have to be a sharing economy, kind of, because people would have to actually welcome tourists and share their homes, maybe, or work in this to make this their work. So these companies are doing all this work that has to be done, as in a hotel, right? To set the scenario for the tourists to be able to stay. And without them, there wouldn't be this situation of foreign investors or foreign companies investing in housing, and then like absent ones, right? And then hiring these companies to do the work for them. And so these companies get a share of the rent tourists pay, if we call it rent. And then the rest goes to this property owner that is many times is abroad, doesn't live specifically in Lisbon, or sometimes they don't even know the city. They have never been here. So with this part of this financialization, meaning that housing is being used as an investment vehicle, as an asset, much more than a place to live, what it should be. So yeah, they are key in this situation, but we've never done any action to try to stop them.
All right, Maria.
In Barcelona, we have not only not done any action, but I don't know if it works exactly like that, or at least it's as visible, because of course, if you have a whole building with or a whole street with all Airbnbs, and you see that they have the same company with trucks or whatever to clean and change the sheets and everything, it would be fake hotels. And I think that even the hotels would protest. So it's not very visible here who is in charge of this kind of operations. But I think that in here it's most, normally it's precarious workers that the owners, at least the particular owners, I'm not talking about these people that maybe have 200 licenses on their own, but the particular owners hire precarious workers, normally migrant women, to do this kind of work. So doing any action against them would be very unfair. It's like going against the rider instead of going against Globo. But we have really not looked into it, and it's an interesting point that maybe we can investigate a bit further. So, and as for my question for Anna, it was more it's a quick question, but you were talking in your referendum about questions, and I just had this doubt that if legally both answers has to be yes to the vote be considered yes in the end, or they can, maybe you can have a vote that people say it would be very weird, right? But people say no to the first question majority, and then a majority of yes in the second. And how would it work? Because when we had the independence referendum, there was also 2 questions, and the combinations were very strange.
Yeah, it's like that. You're saying that someone, when going and voting, can vote yes in one and no in the other. We want both to be yeses, but it can happen, yes, that people don't feel like putting a no in some of them, but we hope not. We are striving for the yes. And if they're both yeses, that means the cancellation of tourist lets in homes that are converted homes, and that there will be no longer allowed to do tourist lets in homes.
Yes. One thing I want to add to abuse my my status here. It's like we have to talk more about the standardization of the logistics and the infrastructure related to Airbnb and short-term rental services. Maybe that can be one topic for the next meetings, in order for us to better organize against very pointed, with very targeted actions. Sidora.
Hello, do you hear me? Okay, hi everyone. I am Sidorella. I'm an activist from Tirana, Albania. First of all, thank you so much for organizing this event, and thank you for the presentation, because at least in my context now in Tirana, this process, it's not so much talked about, and it's always very helpful to find out about others' experience and how we can learn from that. My question is kind of related to my latest one research I did on some neighborhood in Tirana that is, in my opinion, one of the most touristified neighborhoods that we have. And when I would talk to people who were giving their homes for rent, most of them, because it's a very center area, and most of them has left their homes for rent, and they were living in some other places that are, of course, not in the same area. So they're going more and more far away from the city center, which to me was a problem. But to them, and that's what my question is, to them it was something that they would see as a very beneficial. So it was a little bit difficult to create this discourse of them, at least at this moment, that maybe in short term it can be like good money that you get from renting your home, but actually it's like exclusion for yourself from the community and everything that you have in that place. So my question, maybe this is in our context that touristification is a very new thing happening, but I would like to know about your experience, if you had experienced the same maybe narrative with some of the communities you work with, and what would be the best way to approach them in a way that they don't feel like you're judging or fighting with them, but as well to create this healthy narrative that in the long term you will not be able to live there anymore and do your life normally as it used to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sidora. Anyone wants to take this? Anna.
Hi, I think that's a great question, because here it started out like that. It was the beginning of all. And it actually was, and still is a little bit of the narrative. And it was true that after the crisis of 2008, sorry, property owners were affected by the crisis. So everyone was affected by the crisis, right? And they decided to move out and perhaps buy another place, or even rent out outside of the city and rent out in Airbnb their homes. Also, there were people subletting, that meaning renting a place and then subletting to Airbnb. But this is just the beginning of beginnings. I also did research in one of the neighborhoods in Lisbon. One of that was like this where it began. And then after this phase, like it lasted like 1 year or two. And then investors started showing up because they understood it was a way to extract rent and make more profit from homes than through long-term renting to people. And so these investors, first small national investors, I mean small, that could buy one home and maybe even have I don't remember the name, debt, like ask for the banks to give credit to buy these, and they made these their work. So they would go there and clean and do all the things, but then it very quickly transformed into an industry, and very quickly bigger investors started showing up. And now they have replaced these first investors, and these people were homeowners and that moved out. So these homeowners also sold their places to these bigger investors. So it was very fast. It lasted like, I don't know, 2 years. And then now it's almost only investors that do this.
I think in Barcelona, or at least for me, it was a bit different because Barcelona has been touristic since the Olympics in the 90s. And the process has been slower and more like the boiling frog phenomenon. But I'm going to go for my personal experience. For example, as a user of, I remember when Airbnb started this summer, I went to London to someone else's house, and it was clear that it was someone else's house. They left for the weekend for a fair or a concert or something like that, and we even had like, please water my plants and things like this. And you knew you were in someone's house, that you were going to help these people pay the rent possibly. And the next time I tried to use Airbnb, it was completely different. It was clearly a flat made for a short-term rental. It was not a livable place. It was functional, but not livable. And then I realized that, whoa, something has changed in how this work. And it was like 1 or 2 years. As Sana said, the investors quickly picked the pace and changed and I have not used Airbnb since, because I realized, but sadly not everybody realizes. But it was very quick, the change, but the narrative, like Anna said, still is that no, this is people that has a room or that has a flat that they are out in the summer and they rent it, but it's not true. There are, like I said, in Barcelona, there are people that has 150 licenses, just one person. This is not a particular that rents in summer. So yeah, and I don't know how to change the narrative of the people in time. It's very difficult because as people is struggling with their own problems, they think this can maybe save them from not being able to pay their rent, the electricity or whatever, and then we all contribute without realizing. And when we realize it's so, yes, it's better that you start talking to people very soon.
I maybe just want to pick it in as well of like having that conversation, because like I mentioned before, in Ireland there's still like there's not enough stigma yet around having Airbnbs. It's very normalized, and I think that's why we also need to have those conversations with people. We also still need to do that, even though now it's already like taken over by investors, like mainly. Like in Galway, for example, like it's only 3 people hosts, you know, that have over 100 of the properties for lets of the 600. So like it's certainly yeah, investors and companies are certainly the main issue. So that will be the starting point for us to make people aware, like, because that's an easy target or an easy way to make people angry, because it's not your friendly landlord, you know, who's renting out, or your granny, like I said earlier, who's renting out her extra spare room. So that will certainly for us be the first way in getting into it. But then also the second thing, specifically in the Ireland context, would be highlighting that there's a massive housing crisis, like the worst in Europe, in Ireland at the moment. And that, you know, you just don't open an Airbnb during a housing crisis. You just don't do that. That's like morally not right. And so trying to hit home on that point as well then. But like, and what I said in my presentation as well, the fact that we should be boycotting Airbnb for Palestine is also an extra layer on that, and that's maybe something that will hit home even more with some people. Certainly if it's about traveling, I mean, I know for an Irish context, if Irish people here would be traveling and they know that Airbnb is being used in illegal settlements in Palestine, that will be for them an extra reason for sure to not rent an Airbnb in Spain or wherever they go. So I think that's certainly also something we should be using in our conversations to push people over the edge to start boycotting Airbnb. So yeah.
What is striking is that when we have this kind of shortage of housing because so many apartments are put on this platforms like Airbnb, the answer of some people would be that we need to build more. But it's like this never-ending cycle. You build more, and the more that some other people organized institutionally get more of the new housing that's being put on the market. So yeah, let's also reflect on this, how we argue on this topic. Are there any final comments, conclusions? Calls to action?
Yeah, I would just really love to keep this conversation going in the EAC touristification group and reach out to more organizations if we can because yeah, this is obviously European and global. Yeah, and I think there's certainly enough there to start a campaign with EAC as well. And yeah, so just excited to do more talking, do more sharing around this topic.
I just wanted to add that I wish Lisbon and the movement for the referendum all the force and all the strength in the world for next week. And I think that if this goes forward and the referendum, it's talked about, we made it in our own cities and our own countries, that this is known not only for the people in Portugal, but around Europe, it can be a revolution in this sense. So really all the luck in the world, and we are counting on you.
All right, thank you. One last comment from Emanuela. Do you also engage with other social justice, environmental justice, and other related causes activists to join forces? We try to do that as much as possible. Yeah, there's a couple of comrades from the climate movement who are close allies of us. And yeah, we will get back to that. Probably we'll talk in Barcelona. The European Action Coalition will meet in the middle of November in Barcelona. And hopefully during one of the internal plenaries, we can point this out, that we want to focus more on anti-touristification actions. All right, so I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you, Anna, Jana, and Maria for your presentations, and best of luck with your actions. And we're eagerly waiting for news from Lisbon.
Thank you.
Yeah, best of luck. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for organizing this.